Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 37. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday. Steelers Nation, Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Exciting weekend in store for you, right? Going to a wedding, and you're actually going to get away a little bit this weekend, right?
It's going to be a really weird weekend for me. For the first time in at least a decade, maybe more, I will be missing a Steelers game. And I'm doing that for a very good reason. My best friend is getting married. I'm in the wedding, and so I'll be traveling for that. And so on Monday, just as a quick preview, we'll have Josh Carney and Jonathan Heitrader joining Dave to talk about whatever happens Sunday night. So just a heads up there, I guess, off the top. I won't really know what's happening Sunday night in terms of Steelers versus Dolphins.
I bet you had that phone near you, though.
I'm gonna wrestle with it. So I don't know how it's gonna go. Wedding versus Steelers. There's a lot going on in my head Sunday night.
I'm gonna send you I'll be fit to be tied, not having you around too. So I'm gonna send you 80 direct messages and set up those alerts on you. But you should have a good time. And as you mentioned, we'll have Jonathan and Josh Carney on the Monday podcast, and that'll change things up a little bit there and be a little bit different, but we'll recap whatever happens on Sunday night. Going to make for a long night for me. I got to get me some me time in, I think, today, because I'm going to be busy these next couple of days for sure.
Yeah, but we have a great team, so I'm confident that Josh, Jonathan, Joe, Clark, and all the rest will do a fantastic job covering for me. A little bit later in the show, we'll have a Dolphins beat writer. His name is Hal Habib. He writes for the Palm Beach Post, and so we'll have him on to talk Dolphins a little bit later in the show. But for the here and now, let's stick with the Pittsburgh Steelers, as they certainly look a lot healthier going into Week 7 than they did Week 6 against Tampa Bay. In terms of the injury report, as Mike Tomlin suggested on Tuesday, Kenny Pickett with that concussion has worked full all week, and at this point seems pretty locked into play on Sunday night, but team getting healthier as well in terms of guys working back full. That includes cornerbacks Cam Sutton, Kelly Witherspoon, Levi Wallace, Minka Fitzpatrick, Miles Jack, Mason Cole, James Daniels. Those guys will be good to go. Pat Frymuth should return after missing the Bucs game with a concussion. And then Chris Wormley, Larry Ogunjobi dealing with some lower body stuff, ankle, knee stuff, but those guys worked in full on Thursday and also should play against Miami.
Yeah, I guess the only anything can happen, as we saw last Friday, right, with DeMarvin Leal, who, by the way, I think had some sort of knee procedure done, but expects to be back at some point. He's obviously on IR and has got to miss 4 games there. And barring anything, another surprise happening on this Friday, I would guess that Steven Sims is the biggest question mark right now, right?
Right. Mike Tomlin indicated on Tuesday he was dealing with what sounded like a minor hamstring injury, but as we find out, really no such thing as a minor hamstring injury. Those things can linger. Sims has not practiced on Wednesday, Thursday. We'll see what Friday says, but given what's happened to recent guys like Kelly Witherspoon, just the nature of Sims' position, the nature of the hamstring injury, the soft tissue stuff, my guess is he's looking unlikely to play against Miami.
Yeah, well, and we'll see for sure. Obviously, Gunnar Olszewski would probably be the guy that would benefit from that should Sims not play. I guess it's not sounding likely that Calvin Austin III is going to be activated this week. Obviously, things can change in a hurry. We will know for sure come Saturday at 4:00 if this is going to be the game. If this is going to be the weekend that Calvin Austin gets back on the active 53. It certainly doesn't seem like it right now. The other big news that we've been tracking this week is Kenny Pickett and the concussion protocol. That seems to have created a whole nother topic of conversation this week, I guess, is how quickly Pickett, when it went right into full practicing, after, I guess, was he diagnosed with a concussion? I mean,
yes. The team, Bert said he had a concussion.
Yeah, Bert, they listed him as a concussion. Now, did they have to list him that even if he's just out of the game being tested for a concussion? Or did he really? Anyway, that's created this whole different, I guess, conversation, which really I don't give two flying, what's about.
Well, I think in the wake of the Tua stuff, especially, there's a lot more heightened attention to these things, and understandably so. He has moved fast through this protocol.
Right, and I guess that's the overarching thing, is how fast he's moved through this. But the way Mike Tomlin laid it out the other day on Tuesday, talking about the concussion team that they have, and obviously Pittsburgh being reputable UPMC for diagnosis, and how they're really relying on. Is it that big of a deal, or is it just being overblown because of the other numbers out there of related to how quickly he's progressing through this thing?
Well, again,
and the Tua thing.
The Tua thing, it is, Pickett has unusually quickly moved through this process. Oftentimes now, a guy with a concussion misses the next game, or at the least becomes limited. Then you kind of see him work, graduate up and from limited to full, and then eventually being cleared. So, I understand Pickett has gone through it quickly, but the realization is just no two concussions are the same, and players work at their own pace, and some players come back quicker, some players come back slower based on the nature of the concussion, just in the way that any other injury, players can return quicker or later from it. So the fact that he was in protocol, again, unlike Tua, they said he had a concussion, he went through protocol, he's passing all the steps, this is not being kind of skirted, and no, it's not a concussion, it's something else, not that kind of thing. That's what happened with Tua. In my view, that was the worst move that Miami made, was basically never putting him in protocol and then just trotting him back out there. But I understand why some fans, especially on the outside, may look at that and say, that's a little bit strange.
Now, I will admit that at the start, coming out of the last week of that game, and because of all the Tua optics and, everything, that all the talk about concussions, I kind of wondered if he would make it back this week. But once the Wednesday injury report came out and he was listed as full, I was kind of over it at that point.
Yeah, it's not something I'm spending a lot of time thinking about. But again, I understand the outside perspective of how did this guy go from concussed to literally not missing a snap of practice.
Okay. I wonder how they're I don't guess them Miami fans are taking it too well, are they?
I haven't looked, but I imagine they're probably wondering some stuff. But I'm sure they're just happy to get their quarterback back, because Tua should start Sunday night.
All right, so we'll watch Steven Sims, and also James Pierre showed up on the injury report, new addition. I think you highlighted there on Thursday with a hip injury with a limited practice there, so that maybe that's worth following. But hopefully, by the time this long list of names gets whittled down on Friday, there not many, if any of them, will have status reports. I guess probably Steven Sims is probably the one most likely to have a status report on him.
Right. But again, this team much, much healthier than they were last week going into this Miami game. So that's certainly good news overall. Should note that DeMonte Casey has officially been, you call it designated to return, or just the window opening? Is there a particular phrase to use with these guys?
Yeah, they're officially labeled designated to return on the transaction sheet, and once that happens, then obviously the 21-day practice window opens, and a team then has 21 days from the day that player starts practicing to put the player back on, remove him from the injured reserve list, and put him back on the active 53-man roster there. And if not activated back, then out, within the 21-day window, then out for the season at that point, just stays on injured reserve. Now, I thought I read something somewhere that a team's got a player that I think had a setback or something like that, and The talk about that player might be that he might go, even though he's not ready after the 21-day window and so they don't lose him for the season. I wish I could remember which player that was on the team. But what the team was probably likely to do is put the player back on the 53-man roster for 1 day and then put him back on IR again.
Right, because you can bring a guy back twice, technically, right. So that's
man, I wish I could remember which team that was. I can't off the top of my head there, but and obviously I think people are kind of wondering what's going to happen with Calvin Austin. I mean, look, it's not uncommon for this to go closer to the 21 days, especially with the Steelers, than it is a player to resume practicing and then that next weekend or the following weekend actually get activated back. I mean, it all depends on how much of a veteran that player is, how much he knows the offense. I mean, look, Calvin Austin has never played in even a preseason game, right? So, and I know a lot of people like to joke with the fact that that train hasn't left the station too. How could it, with this offense here? But the fact of the matter is he probably is behind. So we'll see.
Right. The question becomes, if Sims is out, how do you replace kick and punt return duties? You have two options. I mean, you have a couple options, but the two that come to mind immediately are Gunnar Olszewski and Calvin Austin. And I think it's an unpopular answer, but I think they would turn to Gunnar because he's done both. Calvin Austin really didn't do a lot of return work in college and did 0 kicks, just punts. And so I think they'll do Gunnar on the road, primetime game, big moment like that. Austin has not played a game since the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, it's been a long time for him. And I think having him handle those duties out of the gate is probably more than what Pittsburgh is looking to try to do if he gets activated at all. And it's certainly possible, as you said, that he's down until next Wednesday.
I think that's the most likely, barring him having some sort of setback, which there's really been, I think, one radio station's maybe saying that they're worried that he might have had a setback, but nobody else has, have they?
I haven't heard anything on that front, so We'll just have to wait and see. But my expectation is that if Sims does not play, that Gunnar Olszewski will be handling return duties against Miami. And with Casey, it's just good to get Casey working back, and hopefully he becomes somebody that can, offer more versatility in the Steelers secondary.
All right, do you expect anybody to be elevated up this week?
Hadn't thought about it too much, given the good health of this team, and probably not. I mean, maybe one of the DBs again, watching Pierre, if he were to be down, then you bring up a Quincy Wilson potentially, but I think it'll be generally pretty quiet on the elevation front Saturday.
All right, so that means our inactives are probably going to look something like Mason Rudolph, Kendrick Green, Mark Robinson back to the inactive list.
Let's assume Sims misses, or one of the receivers, Gunnar / Sims.
One of the receivers is down, and who would be the other odd man out that's been...
It's a good question.
Trying to think here real quick.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that last name would be. I mean, would it be a Josh Jackson if Pierre plays?
It could be. Yeah, it could be. I'm trying to go through the names here real quick. I mean, they've only got 4 outside linebackers on the roster, right?
Right. And Anderson isn't doing much, but he's out there, I guess, as a number 3-ish rotational guy, even though I don't think he's playing much on special teams.
Right.
But
so
I think Josh Jackson
might be one of the cornerbacks then, Josh Jackson. Right. Then.
So we shall see on that. I think Miami, they got... You've done the reports. Where are they at health-wise? They're okay, I guess?
Yeah, there's let me pull up the injury report on them. They got a couple of guys that look like they might miss this game. I know there was a lot of talk about Waddle earlier in the week, but it looks like he's going to come out of this okay here. Keon Crossan, 2 days in a row, he did not cornerback. He was injured last week. It doesn't look like he's trending toward playing. And Emmanuel Ogba, defensive end, a back injury, hasn't practiced the last 2 days. So he's a name to watch. Now, I know Sam Iguavoen, is that how you pronounce his name? linebacker, did not participate yesterday, not injury related, but / illness. So I expect he's probably going to be back today. So I think they've got two guys in Crossan and Ogba who are looking unlikely to play in this game. Looks like everybody else is probably going to make it, barring some sort of setback. Now, they did put Nick Needham and Trey Flowers on IR on Wednesday there, but Trey Flowers was just pretty much a bit player from what I saw. So, probably not a huge loss. Now, Nick Needham's a pretty big loss for him because he was a starting cornerback there, and Keon Crossan, I think, has been playing quite a bit for him as well, too. So, where they're hurting the most, I would think, going into this game is at the cornerback position.
That's been the theme. The Bills, the Bucks, now Miami dealing with some secondary issues. Maybe Pittsburgh can put up more than 20 points in the game. Their offense has not scored more than 20 points in a game this year. They had 23 against Cincinnati, but Minka's pick six, obviously.
That's right.
Is a defensive touchdown there. I haven't checked for sure, but I believe Pittsburgh's the only team to not have more than 20 offensive points in a game. I know Denver's done it. Chicago's done it. Even Carolina's done it. Although I don't know if they're going to do it again after trading McCaffrey and burning down the whole house, but trying to get to 21, just like blackjack. That's what Pittsburgh's mission needs to be.
Yeah, and it's hard to envision them winning the game this week if they don't. Because this is a fast Dolphins offense and quick strike ability and. Obviously, get the quarterback back into it. You hit on a hot topic real quick that happened last night. Just your quick reaction to Christian McCaffrey being traded to the 49ers for a bunch of picks.
Yeah, it was a lot of picks, and not a surprise maybe that he got dealt, but this quickly and for what he got traded for is a second-round pick, a third-round pick, I believe a future fourth-round pick as well. And the salary this year is pretty small on McCaffrey. It spikes next year, but it's certainly going to be cheap this year for the 49ers. I mean, I think it's a good fit in that Shanahan system with the versatility that McCaffrey brings. What they've done with Debo, they can do similar things with McCaffrey. Obviously, the question is always going to be health with him. There's a risk that you take with that, but certainly Carolina, the team that's most likely to be selling, they've already sold Robbie Anderson, and now McCaffrey, the big piece. We'll see what Carolina does the rest of the way, but that certainly was a massive trade that's pretty uncommon in the NFL that went down last night.
Yeah, the Panthers get a second-round pick in 2023, a third-round pick in 2023, a fourth-round pick in 2023, plus a fifth-round pick in 2024. Now, there are several different ways to kind of look at that. Just that alone without knowing more, but now you know the rest of the story. You don't even know who Paul Harvey was or is, do you?
That reference only makes sense probably because you said it before, okay. But I don't know anything beyond that. He
was kind of a talk radio guy, and he would have a segment, the rest of the story where he would set this whole thing up and then deliver the end of the story, and at the end he would say, and now you know the rest of the story.
Casey Kasem, Paul. I'm talking to Fraser. I'm talking to Fraser Crane over here. This is radio.
Oh no, you're way too much giving me too much highbrow.
Yeah.
Just look at some of the DMs I send you guys, and that eliminates the highbrow aspect.
A very drunk Fraser Crane, probably.
There you go.
Is
there
what
you
I'm
go.
dealing with. Okay.
But on paper here. I'm not giving it up for a running back. You know me.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad I was sitting down for that information. Did they like that deal for San Francisco?
I guess. And now for the rest of the story, they have a lot of compensatory stuff, a lot of compensatory stuff, a lot of, I guess, third rounders overall. And they're expecting some more on the way because they had lost Mike McDaniel and who was the defensive coordinator?
Robert Saleh.
Yeah, Robert Saleh. And then anyway, I guess they've got a plethora of kind of mid-round picks, talking about the 49ers, to deal with, and such a large cache of picks that they weren't going, it's nice to have 7, 8 picks, but there becomes a time and point, I guess, because of the salaries related to those and yada yada, that they might become too many. And I guess kind of those picks just kind of became funny money, right? And kind of stuff that you could throw into deals like that. So I guess I get it overall, but I think every trade, I don't think you can look at it look at a trade and say, yeah, but they have all these extra picks over here as that makes it okay. What you gave up. I think value, straight up value is straight up value. And I feel like they gave up a little bit too much, but anyway.
No, that's my sense too, and I'm less anti-running back than you, but I felt like it was a pretty heavy price to pay for the health, for the contract next year. How long is this guy really going to be in San Francisco for? It may only be a year, maybe 2 years. It may not be a long time. I think it's a good deal for Carolina trying to rebuild and get a lot of potential pieces for the next head coach to really want to come to Carolina and have something to work with to try to rebuild this whole team.
To be clear, I'm not anti-running back. I'm just high capital in running back. Right. Overvaluing running back. I mean, you had that Eno kid last week. I know I make people mad, and I do it on purpose.
You make me mad when you do it. I hate when you do that. I know it's coming.
I make people mad, and admittedly, I do it on purpose. Anytime a 7th rounder or a 6th rounder or an undrafted kid has a big game or whatnot, I always like to point out where that kid came from and the draft capital or not involved in it there. But I just want to be clear. I'm not anti-running back. I'm just anti-overvaluing running back.
I feel like you have a big cork board next to your computer with a big list of running backs and where were they drafted. Every time somebody scores a touchdown, you get like a little alert and you're cross-referencing stuff.
Let me tell you, I can Google that stuff in a hurry.
I know you do. And so next time an undrafted running back even touches the football, we're going to get the Dave tweet about.
Right. Oh, yeah. Every time. Count on it.
Yeah. All right. Let's turn it back to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the coordinators, of course, as they always do every Thursday. Matt Canada, Teryl Austin speaking to the media. Really not a lot to talk about here, to be honest with you,
Shocking.
Dave. Even worse than usual, to be honest, in terms of the conversation. So I'm not even really sure where to start in terms of what those guys said that would be noteworthy for us to discuss or something to really take away. Obviously, Canada talking about, getting guys healthier and the return of Pat Frymuth, really good for this offense overall. But I really don't have a whole lot to add here on Canada.
You got you get to fill in the square. We've got to score more points on your bingo card.
I need to try to clip. I need to put like some sort of compilation together. That's why I wish they would release the video just so I could try to clip. That's probably why they don't do it, because I would sit there and I would clip every single time Canada said, well, we just got to score more points. We just got to be better.
He did talk about, let's see.
Yeah, Pat, right. What did he talk about?
Yeah, Pat Frymuth being back and, obviously excited to have that, and talked about helping, getting information from Brian Flores. He says flow's great. I certainly, like I said, I'm happy about the relationship we have and the ability to talk to him about different views. Coach Tomlin has always been great about that as well, and certainly is majorly involved on offense and comes in with what he sees and yada yada there. Was asked about Najee Harris. He said, again, I keep saying it. We know we're not where we want to be with the running game. You started it, so we're not going to act like I'm saying it. He says, you look at Najee's health. He came out of camp and he's coming along now. You saw him being a little bit more downhill, a little bit more decisive. The production is not where we want it. But I don't think I'm ever going to come here and say it's where we want it. Well, damn. But it's not where we want it. He says we've got to keep getting better. But yeah, I think you saw him playing more decisive.
Did you get that sense? I mean,
no,
not.
I thought, and look, and you even highlighted this, I think, the other day on Twitter, because right on Monday, one of the first things that I think I said when it came to Najee was the fact that there were a couple runs kind of later in the game that I thought might have been his best really might be his best runs of the season. And particularly, I think that 8 or 9 yard run that you highlighted there, that was, I mean, for the time of the game and when it happened and down distance, yada, yada, I thought it was a huge, huge run in the game. And you know, a couple broken tackles and, you know, I just overall, I thought that was a very, very good run for him. And I think he had one other for, I don't know, 6 yards or something like that. But, you know, man, Alex, you look around the NFL and you look at the tape on some of these other running games, and you look at last night, even with the Cardinals game, that, you know, they got the Ingram. You didn't even know, most people don't even know who those two cats were in the backfield yesterday, you know, for Arizona. And it's not like Arizona has a prime offensive line. In fact, they even had a backup left guard, I think, in that game at some point last night there because of another injury there. You know, other teams are able to scheme this thing up a little bit better and you know, execute better. It's just frustrating week after week to say, well, they don't have the offensive line, or Najee's been hurt, or, you know, this has gone on for way too long now. They've got to start running the football. You look around the league every week and other teams are doing it much better than they are.
Right. We've had this conversation about the run game for basically 3 seasons, and excuses become tired and certainly wear thin. Now, I think those things are true. The line has not locked on that 8 yard run you're referencing. You got Mason Cole pulling and 2 guys end up blocking the same defender because there was some miscommunication on who was taken first color and those kinds of things. I have a video today on some of the Deontay Johnson jet runs. The first time there's a blown assignment. The second time there's missed execution. So if it's not one thing, or it's the other in terms of execution or assignment in terms of this run game. So I think it's okay to detail why it's failing, but at some point it just has to stop failing, and you have to get more consistent, tangible progress. And we've been waiting for it and asking for it since at least 2020.
And there's no sign it's going to get better than what it's looked like right now.
Right. I mean,
much better.
You've seen some small, you know, the Jets game, you saw some progress there. The Browns game, you saw some progress there. But at some point, it has to actually get there instead of just saying we're getting there and then taking it. It's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's this run game. And at some point, you have to stop playing that game.
And if there was ever a really good elixir for a rookie quarterback coming in to kind of lean on, it would be a running game. We saw it with Ben in 2004, right? And you see it even today around the league a little bit. Jets are probably a pretty good example of that. I guess with their younger quarterback now, and you can't expect Kenny Pickett to go out there every week and sling it around the field 40, 50 times a game. I don't think. And Mike Tomlin gave us that money quote a week ago Sunday that it's going to be hard to not go back to every time. That's the fact that we don't have an offense that can move the football up and down the field.
Right. You know? It's a true statement, but it's a damning statement to hear from your head coach. Right.
And, you know, this team's near the bottom in explosive plays, and it's frustrating to see this team go through this right now, and as long as they have gone through it now.
To flip over to Teryl Austin and the Steelers defense, again, really not a lot there. Maybe the most notable thing was a question kind of, you know, reference to Austin, with multiple reporters saying that Brian Flores has grade sheets that he gives to the linebackers, and that kind of helps Devin Bush in particular track his progress. So it is obviously difficult to always quantify the impact of assistant coaches and what they can do and what they're doing for the team, because the work they do is always behind the scenes. But that's one small piece of information of maybe something Flores is doing differently in terms of being having those grade sheets and trying to really, you know, tangibly track a player's progress.
Yeah, and high praise for Devin Bush, you know, and with good reason. He's a guy that we've talked about since the game ended the other day against the Buccaneers and all. And I've said it several times, that might have been top 3 easily game of Devin Bush's young career to date.
I know there's still more than half a season to be played, and so this answer could and maybe will change, but what are the odds Devin Bush returns in Pittsburgh in 2023, re-ups the way that Terrell Edmonds did?
I think it would look exactly like that.
Yeah, I think that's the only way.
If it does happen.
I still think the odds are pretty low. I think Bush has been better, but is it good enough? Is that really where this team wants to have the standard to be as about average in terms of maybe a best case with Bush? I think this team has to still aim their sights much higher than that.
Right. If they did it, they would do it with the notion of, look, we're bringing you back at this level, but there's, we've got to make sure we have, other bases covered in case, it quite honestly might look like, and Terrell Edmonds was late re-signing back in the process and all too. So I think they'll give Devin Bush every opportunity to fly the coop. And it all comes down to if he gets a deal to his liking that he wants. Now, he might be saying, look, I might be better off taking a 1-year deal for a near the minimum and try to increase my value a little bit more, much in the way that, Terrell Edmonds thought, because the market value on a long-term deal anyway, from where we sit right now for Devin Bush, isn't going to be great elsewhere.
Sure. I mean, I think sometimes those guys take the 1-year deals because there are no other options. It's 1 year or nothing. There may not be that long-term deal out there. So my guess is that he still won't be back, but maybe could earn himself a bit of a decent salary somewhere else.
Possible. If he keeps increasing his play, I mean, if he plays like he did the other day for the rest of the season, the way he did against the Buccaneers, he most definitely will increase his value.
What is the best part of Devin Bush's game currently? What does he do the best?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's what I struggle with when I go back to should he come back. I mean, again, things have been better. I think he has been more physical, more downhill, but it's still not a real great strength of his game. I think he's a decent tackler and blitzer, but those aren't necessarily, every linebacker needs to tackle well, and blitzing's offering minimal value.
Yeah, and what he does, what is his strong point? What can he hang his hat on? What part of his game? And that is very it really is still the kind of the sideline pursuit, really.
But is it that great? I mean, it's decent, I guess, but it's not that. It's not the way that it was supposed to be.
Right, but that's the best part of his game. That was the best part of his game coming out of.
No, it was coming out, but is it now after the knee injury? I don't know if he's quite the same explosive type dude.
But it's still the best part of his game, right? Okay.
I struggle to come up with the answer. I think I would probably say maybe his tackling and maybe his blitzing.
Okay. I would say just his ability still to get out on the edge and keep it to a 3-yard run,
Okay. Fair enough. Anything else from the coordinators, Canada, Austin, that you want to discuss?
No, nothing really hits me here, to be honest with you.
I guess we should mention, just because it's such a hot topic issue, Chase Claypool, the trade rumors, and I have very big air quotes on that, have been circling. A lot of this stems from the initial ESPN report that indicated Green Bay potentially looking for receiver help, and Jeremy Fowler saying that, some NFL execs believe that Claypool was available to be traded for back in the preseason. I know there was and I have very big air quotes here, a report on Thursday about Claypool and the Packers having interest. That report to me is entirely uncredible, and I would take that with a big old grain of salt. But the Claypool trade rumors probably will persist, especially if Pittsburgh does not beat Miami on Sunday night.
Yeah, and we've talked about this enough, and there was enough talk on the internet yesterday that I dedicated a terrible take to it, and I just can't. I can't unless you can get a 3rd-round pick for him, Alex. I struggle to think what good it does trading him away now. Wide receivers not named Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, or George Pickens have combined to catch 1 pass for 11 yards this season.
Is that Boykin?
That's Boykin.
Okay.
I mean, and that's Boykin, Sims, Gunnar Olszewski, and obviously Calvin Austin III, who hasn't played a down yet. Those are 4 guys that you have 1 catch for 11 yards out of. All right, so I struggle, and it's not like this guy's killing you financially, 1.2 million obviously this year, and you're already almost half into that. 1.5 million in 2023, barring him hitting his proven performance escalator, which it looks like he's on track to do. So even if he hits his proven performance escalator, you're probably talking a little more than $3 million in 2023. That's not killing you. Sure, he's not lived up to, anywhere, close to his draft value yet. But then again, you turn around and you see him have a productive game like he had against the Buccaneers. I struggle unless the guy's a cancer in the locker room, and I really don't see him as that, or a guy that's causing problems, which I really don't see him as that. I don't see the value, even if they lose these next two games, of trading them away for less than a third round pick.
Well, I think before this game against Tampa Bay, he was really struggling, and we talked about what is his role, what is his fit. He really wasn't. He was supposed to be the outside Z vertical receiver. Really, had struggled, consistently, as you said, not able to stack guys. Doesn't create a lot of separation. He looked pretty uncomfortable in the slot overall prior to the Buccaneers game. I know it was a good game against Tampa Bay, but can he find that consistency? He's always been an up and down, pretty frustrating player. So I could see the merit of trading him just for the fact of there potentially may not be a great long-term fit with him in Pittsburgh in terms of what's his role, how is he going to consistently win, what is his overall strength to the offense. So I could understand trading him, but I don't think anything could even potentially happen for 2 weeks. See where this team is at. They win these next two games, they're not going to sell pieces. If they lose the next two games, they certainly could sell a piece or two. And so I think everyone's trying to make this judgment right now when Pittsburgh's going to wait as long as possible to see where he's at, where they're at, where Calvin Austin's at before deciding anything.
Sure, I understand he might not be a long-term piece, but he's still a piece that's cheap, that's got experience, that can get you through next season as a depth guy.
Right, but if you lose these next two games, you're 2-6. I mean, your season's over.
Right. But once again, if it's a third round pick, okay. I mean, is it really, where is the value in, I struggle with where the value is in only getting, let's say, a fourth for him versus what he can provide you next season.
Well, what's he going to provide you next season?
Just a depth guy,
you can find, it's replaceable. You can replace that this offseason. I mean, okay. I don't think you get a third for him. I think you could, but maybe at best, I think maybe a fourth, probably a fifth at best in terms of what you would actually get for the guy because he's been so up and down.
Look, and I've been one of his critics saying that he, I took hell for saying he's having a third round grade on him and him being drafted in the second round. Now everybody wants to let him go for a fifth or sixth round draft pick there. I think he still has some value to the Steelers, especially if he can get, his contested catches back and all like that. But even I'm not ready to ship him out for a bag of footballs.
Didn't we just have a conversation about Claypool when we both
did.
agreed, maybe they could trade him?
Yeah, but I mean, I still struggle with letting him go based on the rest of this depth chart right now. But
if you're 2-6, then what does the rest of the depth chart really matter? I mean, you can get Calvin Austin playing time. Yeah, your offense is probably going to be hurt a little bit by it, but not significantly so.
The more I look at this, I wonder what's the gain.
Either the guy, I mean, how does Claypool function best in this offense? Like, what is his best role? Back to kind of the Devin Bush question.
And that's a great question because he's a not every down big slot is really technically his best role.
And has he been great in the slot? I mean, aside from the Tampa game, has he been great in the slot?
No. That's why I say not in every down.
Right. But even just a good slot, or the downs in which he plays.
No, he hasn't been great at it. No.
Yeah. So to me, the reason why I trade him is simply we don't have a good schematical fit for Chase Claypool in our offense. We tried him on the outside, didn't work. Tried him in the slot, didn't really work. He's got a little bit of value right now with a contract. Running through next year, let's deal him, get something for him, and try to find a better fit.
I mean, I suppose And as I ended my take the other yesterday, where I come, if you can get a third for him, okay, but a fourth, I don't know. I just struggle with why not just keep him.
Sure. And I'm not saying you have to trade him. I'm not trying to be the number one trade Chase Claypool advocate. I think there's a chance he gets dealt, but I think more likely than not, he remains in Pittsburgh. I'm just arguing the case. I think there is a case to be made for why you would trade him.
Yeah. And I mean, look, are you going to do it though, if you win either one of these next two games?
Well, that's why I said everyone wants to decide right now, should they trade him? I said they're going to wait and see how these next 2 weeks play out, because yes, if this team's certainly more competitive after the, going into the bye, then they're very unlikely to trade anybody. So, I mean, but if they lose these next two games, the picture may change. And if Calvin Austin plays and does well or doesn't do well, if he doesn't get activated, there's a lot of variables that have to be crossed before this team really decides whether or not to make a deal.
I don't know. I find myself just kind of very conflicted in this, aspect of it, because of, and maybe there's a recency bias in there because of what he did in this game again. I mean, look, if you're going to do it, the fire is probably hottest it's going to be right now, right?
Sure, but again, I think this team will take the next 2 weeks, see where they're at, because you don't want to trade him and then to lose these next two games and wonder, could Claypool would help. But deadline spur action. I know McCaffrey got dealt, but generally any deal's going to happen will be right before the deadline, the day of, the day before. And so Pittsburgh has some time to evaluate Claypool. Can he string together consistently good performances, or does he kind of put another dud on the board? Where is this team at record-wise, competitiveness-wise? All things this team has a little bit of time to wait and see.
Let me ask you, let's look at it this way real quick here.
Okay.
Can you still get the same thing that you might get for him now at some point during next offseason?
I don't know. I mean,
like
it depends
during the draft or prior to the start of the 2023 season, can you still, or is it the fact that he because someone that inherits him now, I guess the extra bonus feature is they get the half the season out of him now.
Right. And they're likely maybe a bit more of a competitive team with a higher incentive to, hey, we're in this thing. Let's add another piece to try to really, put ourselves over the top. So I think the value may be hurt slightly. I mean, I think at best it's a fourth for Claypool. I think it's more realistically maybe a fifth for Chase Claypool overall in terms of what you could get for him. So I don't know if that would necessarily change a lot if it happened next April or next August.
Okay, well, we'll definitely see here in 2 more weeks for sure. But it sure is a big talking point. Look, this goes all the way back to Fowler back in when was it? May, June, saying that Claypool was the most likely guy to be gone.
Right, he's been talking about that as long as anybody. He's really kind of driven the bus on that. So we'll see. But again, I think there's more time than people realize. A decision has not been made, does not need to be made today, tomorrow, next week.
Look, I don't think he's a big loss. I mean, if you do dealing, but I just, I want the best value, and sure. I want, I struggle to find out how much there is to gain for like only a fourth or a fifth or something.
That's a fair point. I totally get that. So anything else news-wise you want to discuss, Dave?
I think that's got most of it there.
All right. I think with that said, we'll take a quick pause here and come back with a Dolphins beat writer. His name is Hal Habib. He writes for the Palm Beach Post. You can follow him on Twitter, at Gunner Hal. And so we'll take a pause and come back with Hal.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. That means we have a beat writer from the opposing team on to help us preview the upcoming matchup, which in Week 7 here is the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Miami Dolphins on the road, Sunday Night Football. And Alex, we have a first-timer on the show with us today, Hal Habib. Hal covers the Dolphins for the Palm Beach Post. You can read his work at palmbeachpost.com. You can follow Hal on Twitter. He's got some great pictures of his dogs up here as well too. At Gunner Hal. That's GUNNERHAL. Hal, welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'll try not to be terrible, I guess.
It'll be great.
It'll be great. That's why we call it the Terrible Podcast here. Hal, look, big game here, obviously, for both teams. The Dolphins come into this 3-3. The Steelers are just hanging on after a big win against the Buccaneers. First game back, obviously, in a few games for Tua at quarterback here. First question, how do you feel Mike McDaniel has handled this whole concussion thing, really from the onset up until now?
Well, if you ask him, he would tell you that he's just leaving it up to the medical professionals. And, any head coach in the NFL really is obligated to do just that. At the same time, we all saw what we saw when Tua first went down and then stumbled getting up, stumbled a second time, going back to the Bills game. And yet, I look up at the end of halftime and I see Tua warming up to go back in. And that was a pretty big surprise, really. And now, the following week he got injured again against the Bengals. And that started the whole national controversy. I don't know what Mike could have done other than just holding out Tua in the second half of the Bills game. But at the same time, I'm just uncomfortable with the whole thing because I think that's sort of a case where you have to trust your eyes as much as anything. And it's sort of ironic that Tua went back in the Bills game after stumbling the way he did, and yet Bridgewater was benched for all but one play of the Jets game when he had a stumble that only the spotter above saw.
Hal, what are the optics right now? The Steelers obviously had Kenny Pickett leave the game last week to get checked for a concussion in concussion protocol. There's a lot of talk right now, man, how quickly a full practice on Wednesday, full practice on Thursday. Looks like he's now out of concussion protocol as of about 30 minutes ago there. I imagine that's got to be quite a topic of conversation right now down South Florida, right?
It is, and it's just another inconsistency that the NFL has to somehow address. It is odd. I mean, keep in mind that Bridgewater was pulled, as I said a minute ago, in that Jets game, and yet that was a call made by the spotter above. The doctors who actually examined him on the field and then in the locker room said there never was any problem, that he passed all concussion tests, and yet he still couldn't go back in the game. And not only that, but he had to ease his way into practice the following week. And he essentially came in relief of Skylar Thompson in this last game. And he threw for 300 yards in basically 3/4 of play. But he did that with virtually no significant practice time the week before.
Health stand from a health standpoint, Nick Needham, they lost. He's on IR. I think Trey Flowers went on IR on Wednesday as well too. A little bit banged up at another cornerback position, and I think on a defensive line. Are those two players, Keon Crossan and Ogba, the only two that look like they're going to miss this game?
Yeah, well, the most significant part about all of that is cornerback, because you have to keep in mind that Byron Jones, ideally it should be Byron Jones and Xavier Howard at cornerback from Miami, and the Dolphins haven't had Byron Jones all year. And then on top of that, Howard was playing with a groin injury and for several weeks wasn't even looking like Howard at all. And so you pile on top of that the Nick Needham injury, where he's out for the year. Crossan's banged up. Kader Kahu, the rookie who's looked really good, has had an injury. There are all sorts of things going on at cornerback, and I think that's definitely going to get the attention of the Steelers. So that's the biggest concern that I would have right now.
How to go to Miami's offense in the run game? Obviously, Mike McDaniel, Raheem Mostert worked together in San Francisco. Aside from that connection, what has Mostert done to become the lead back? I know at the start of the year, he was kind of the 1B to Chase Edmonds, is now clearly the 1A and really just the number one guy ahead of Edmonds. What has Mostert done to really secure that role?
Well, he's gotten some yards and shown his speed, really. That's the thing. Mike McDaniel's offense is built on that wide zone approach where they try to stretch the field in more ways than one. And Mostert has been able to capitalize on some of that lately. But at the same time, Edmonds looked good in training camp. I don't think the coaches have forgotten about that. I wouldn't be surprised to see them mixing up from week to week. And still, I don't know if I would call it running back by committee, but I wouldn't count Edmonds out of the mix at all. And there's also, Myles Gaskin, the veteran, who gets some playing time as well. So we'll have to see how much they mix it up on Sunday night.
Tell me about Mike Gesicki. I know that obviously when you trade for Tyreek Hill, that's going to impact and maybe minimize some of the production, but Gesicki's numbers have really dropped overall, at least between the 20s. Is that solely because of Hill soaking up so many targets and so many opportunities? Why isn't Gesicki seemingly a major part of this pass game anymore?
Well, it's not just the Hill influence that's going on. More than that, Mike McDaniel pretty much demands a tight end to be a versatile tight end, which means not just a receiving tight end. He talks about George Kittle and how Kittle is able to do a little bit of everything. And the key word there is blocking. Mm-hmm. And Mike has never been known for his blocking. He's almost a receiver who is labeled a tight end. And it's really unfortunate because he's not a fit for this offense, and yet he's Miami's franchise player, and he's making $10.9 million a year. It's unfortunate to see Mike in this position because he is such a talented receiver. We've seen him make some unbelievable catches. I still think that he's capable of doing all of that, and yet Miami isn't capitalizing on it. So, if you're not going to get the most out of your player, then why is he here? You get into the whole question of whether Miami should trade him and whether they would get good value to trade him away.
Do you know if there's any consideration to do that at the deadline, or do they would just want to hold on to their pieces now, just given this team's obviously trying to make the playoffs this year?
I haven't heard a ton really so far, but if something's going to heat up, it would make sense to happen in this last week. We just saw, Carolina and San Francisco make a huge trade. Mm-hmm. So this will be the time for, if something is going to happen, this would be the most likely week for it to happen, really.
There's two guys along the offensive line I want to ask you about. Obviously, left tackle Teron Armstead, and that was the big, one of the biggest free agent signings of the offseason. What has he done for this offense? And I know he's hurt right now, is not playing, but Austin Jackson, and I ask about him just because he was the player drafted as part of that Minkah Fitzpatrick deal. So I'm just curious about the other side, aside from the injury this year. How has Austin Jackson played? And then just give me the skinny on Teron Armstead.
Austin Jackson is no Minkah Fitzpatrick.
I figured that.
Yeah. Austin has hit a lot of speed bumps along the way in his development. Now, whether the new coaching staff and new line coach, every year Miami, at least once a year, Miami has to change offensive line coaches. So Matt Applebaum has come in and tried to make Austin a more effective tackle. Unfortunately for Austin, though, he's been out all year, and we thought that maybe he would be back a week or two ago, but something has just not clicked for him health-wise. And so, he's continuing to be out. And then with Teron Armstead, he basically has pretty much not practiced all year, really. Occasionally he'll pop in there. Yesterday he was in there, and that was a kind of a pleasant surprise. But I think that the Dolphins, when they acquired him, they knew his injury history was extensive. And so their plan to keep him in one piece was to have him on the practice field as little as possible and hope that he could go on game day. And that had been working until his toe injury really flared up. And so he saw a specialist while the team was in New York. And I thought he was going to go last week, but that didn't work out. I think there's a very high probability the Steelers are going to see him on Sunday night. And he is doing pretty well when he's in there, but it's a question of, is he going to be in and out all year, really?
How if a new Dolphins fan was to come to you and one that may be fairly new to football in general, how would you best describe what is Tua's strong points? What would you hang your hat on when talking about why Tua, is or should be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL?
Well, when you say one of the top quarterbacks, I think it depends on how you define it. He's certainly not elite right now. He's not in the category of, some of the obvious guys, Mahomes and company. I would
say top 10, top 12.
Maybe. I'm waiting to see. I was determined to go into this year without any preconceived notions on Tua. I wanted to let my eyes tell me, is he the answer or is he not? And for those first 3 games, he looked pretty darn good. I would say his accuracy is certainly the first thing that comes to mind as a strength for him. A lot of people obviously have had a lot of questions about his arm strength. And, that's certainly there. But, you have to take into account that this year he's been able to get the ball deep to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Those were big questions going into the year, and he's been able to deliver to them. And not only deliver, but he did that with almost no lead-up time in preseason with either guy. So I give him a lot of credit for that. And also keep in mind, the Dolphins are 3-0 with him and 0-3 without him.
Flipping over to the defensive side of football, like the Steelers, it looks like they're struggling to get some sacks here and some takeaways, especially as of late here. But when you look at them on film, specifically, I think on some 3rd and long situations, it looks like they're trying to protect those chains and not get beat over the top, not give up the big explosive play. What's going on that has this team kind of searching for sacks and takeaways?
That's a good question, because when you look at the talent they have guys who should be racking up sacks. Jalen Phillips comes to mind, Emmanuel Ogbah and company. It should be happening at a higher rate than it is, and that compounds the problem, that I mentioned, the cornerback. The takeaways aren't there, obviously. The first thing you think of when you think of the Dolphins taking the ball away is Xavier Howard. So if he's ailing with those injuries and he's not getting the takeaways, then, it's a question of who is. Javon Holland is at safety, and he's certainly the other guy you would look at as a real playmaker. But yeah, they're just not getting the results that they have in the past. They're still relying heavily on the blitz, especially going back to last year. Josh Boyer and Brian Flores love that cover 0, and they were very effective with it. And now it's not having the kind of splash plays that it did a year ago.
I think they've run cover zero like 12 times, maybe that I've seen on tape all season here. So not a lot. Go ahead, Alex. Couple more.
Couple more for you, Hal. Speaking of blitzes and pressures, tell me about safety Brandon Jones. I know he's got, I think, 2 sacks this year, been really active, close to the line of scrimmage. I don't know a ton about him. So who is Brandon Jones and what role does he play for this Dolphins defense?
The Dolphins love to use him in sort of a shock role. He's very effective on those blitzes, like you mentioned. And I think it kind of comes as a shock to offenses when he comes. It seems like a lot of times he comes in clean where no one is accounting for him. And so that definitely is something the Steelers would have to look at. You know, that's his really calling card. He's much more effective at that. And he does okay in pass coverage, but the first thing you think of for sure with him is his ability to blitz and catch offenses off guard.
Yeah, in our scouting report, we noted second and long field side blitzes is where they seem to use Brandon Jones the most. My last question for you, Hal, then I'll let Dave finish things out. Just what is Mike McDaniel like? He seems like me, just a nerdy kind of guy. Maybe you're different from your typical coach. How have players responded to his pretty unique personality?
So you're ready to be a head coach in the NFL? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I am ready.
He's a really bright guy, went to Yale.
Right.
Personable guy. There's that clip that the Dolphins posted on social media of Mike on his flight from California to Miami before he even landed here as Dolphins coach. He was on the phone with Tua trying to develop a rapport, telling Tua he believed in him, building up his confidence. And he does that not just with Tua, but pretty much with all the players. I think the players do enjoy playing for him. They like his creativity. And the Dolphins have shown some pretty good creativity at times this year with their play calling. And Mike does call the offensive plays for Miami. So, it's early in his time here. It's hard to draw any conclusions whether this was a fantastic hire or just another guy. I tend to think that it was a good hire, but 6 games in, I don't want to jump overboard in either direction. But so far, the results have been very positive.
Real quick, and I should have looked this up, but did he play football in college, or did he actually play? I'm just curious if he did or if he didn't.
He was a defensive tackle. No, I'm kidding.
He was a nose tackle taking on blocks. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he, for those who haven't seen a picture of him, like full size, he's a little bigger than me, and I'm tiny.
Don't feel bad. You're probably bigger than Alex, Hal.
Right. He could have been a kicker. I don't know if he did something in high school. I mean, obviously, he's a pretty small guy.
No, he was a receiver. He says that he gets a kick out of when he meets football people, and they first see him, and they give him this look like, you're a football guy, because he's small, he's thin, all of the above. So somehow he still manages to make a connection with these 330-pound guys.
Hal, before I get your prediction here, and it's only 6 games in, and they just got Tua back, but you've seen a little bit now. Is Miami a playoff team this year?
Going into the year, I picked them to win. I think it was 9 or 10 games, but missed the playoffs, and that was based largely on how strong the AFC was going to be going into the year. It's really, I still think that they're a bubble team. A lot of it will depend on health right now, which is being severely tested for Miami. They also have a couple of tough games in California coming up in several weeks. I don't know. I would say right now I'll stick to my original prediction and say that they're going to just miss out. But it could go either way for sure.
Okay, Sunday night at Hard Rock Stadium. The latest updated line now is Dolphins -7 at home. Big night, obviously the 50th anniversary of the perfect season and all. The Steelers come in, fresh off of win, a big win over the Buccaneers. How do you see this going? Do you have a final score for us?
First of all, that number seems like a big number to me, 7. Man, I'll go with the Dolphins simply because they're the home team. I don't want to sound like a homer, but if this game were up in Pittsburgh, I'd probably swing it the other way around. But I think when you put it all together, the Dolphins have had very few primetime home games, and this will be sort of a happening down here. And then when you add into it, like you mentioned, the 50th anniversary of the 72 team, there'll be a lot of pomp and circumstance surrounding this game. The field will be decorated in retro colors. The Dolphins will be in throwbacks. So they're trying to really build this up as a special kind of evening. And if the Steelers came in and spoiled it, that would really put a damper on things for Miami. But, I'll say the Dolphins, probably some, fairly low scoring game, maybe like a 2017 kind of thing.
All right, fair enough there. Hal, look, first time on, you did not disappoint. Down the road, maybe we hope to have you on the show again sometime. So, Hal, from Alex, Kozora, and myself, thank you for coming on the Terrible Podcast today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Hal Habib, who writes for the Palm Beach Post. You can follow Hal, and you should, on Twitter at Gunner Hal. Really good to have him on. Thought he did a great job, Dave. Yeah,
first-time guy. And I think in the past we've kind of struggled to get Dolphins beat writers on the show there. So, and I contacted them late on Thursday night there, just as the Thursday night game was getting underway, and did it during as a text, and he got right back to me, and we got it set up. So we appreciate him working on that. And the way you can kind of pay guys like Hal back, if you're listening and you like him and you want to support the show and support him, reach out to him on Twitter if you can, at Gunner Hal. HAL, and let him know you heard him on the Terrible Podcast and you appreciate his time. That kind of helps lay the foundation. However, whenever the next time the Steelers play the Dolphins and all, that we reach out to him and he remembers, oh yeah, those guys on a Terrible Podcast and their listenership were real nice to me, and it makes it easier to line him up for an interview next time. So Alex and I would really appreciate that if you took time to reach out to him on Twitter. At the very least, follow him. But if you got something nice to say to him, that wouldn't hurt either there.
Yeah, it means a lot to them, means a lot to us as well. So, Dave, how about you and I preview this game Sunday night? The Pittsburgh Steelers sitting at 2-4 against the 3-3 Miami Dolphins. Dolphins heavy favorites in this one because, as Hal said, they're 3-0 when Tua is their starting quarterback, and obviously a much different offense. You look at some of the overall numbers, they're averaging 27 points per game when Tua starts. They're averaging 16 points per game when Tua does not start. So basically every significant, stat trends much more favorably to them when Tua starts than when he's not available, and that makes a lot of sense. So starting with this Dolphins offense, what are the couple things that scare you the most about what they offer?
Tyreek Hill.
As Teryl Austin said, can we put guys in motorcycles or cars? Don't think that'll be allowed.
They might need that Porsche of yours, Alex.
Sure. It'll be on the road this weekend. Sorry, you can't have it.
I tell you, and look, that's no surprise to anybody that follows the NFL. That guy can home run you right in a hurry, and and not only him, Waddle's another one that's a big game breaker for them. They are not afraid to throw the football to either one of those two guys in any situation, whether it be a quick wide receiver screen, a quick slant, a 12-yard dig, 15, 18-yard dig. They really make it. they know what their strengths are, and their strengths are explosive plays and home runs at that. Those type of plays that end up 62 yards in the end zone there. So that is obviously the biggest concern, and especially sometimes with Tua, and that there's two aspects of Tua that I've seen on tape. It's the Tua that makes the decision quick and gets that ball out in a hurry, and then there's the Tua that holds on to the ball way too long and gets himself in trouble, I think, there. But quite obviously, the biggest thing with them, and it doesn't look like they throw to the backs a lot out of the backfield. Don't look like they use the tight end. As you mentioned, Gesicki doesn't have, what's he got, 13 catches or something on the season?
He's averaging 2.5 a game. He's still getting in the end zone. He actually has more touchdowns than last year, but between the 20s, he's not doing much of anything.
Right. Let's see. Hill, as far as receiving touchdowns, Hill's got 2, Waddle's got 3, Gesicki's got 3, and Chase Edmonds has 1, and Crockraft, who came alive, I think, in that last game, right? Has 2 receiving touchdowns for them as well too. What did you think about that question? How would you answer the question that I asked Hal, which is what is the strength? What does Tua do best?
Yeah, that's a good question. Whenever I watch the Dolphins, I watch some with Tua, some without, and I was more focused on the schematic type stuff. So I don't know really what the best answer is. I think the accuracy overall is probably, as the answer Hal gave it, is the best way to describe what Tua does best. Is overall, I think, command of the offense, the mobility, the arm strength maybe is a little bit questionable, but I don't know if it's as bad as people make it out to be overall. But I think it's a really well schemed offense with a ton of speed on the outside. And aside from watching them, the best way to know their speed is the Dolphins lead the NFL in receptions of 40-plus yards with 7. Jalen Waddle has 4. Tyreek Hill has 3. So they make up all 7, and those guys are consistent big play threats. And I think Tua does a good job of just getting his playmakers the football, which is a simple concept, but as we see in Pittsburgh, not always something that teams do effectively.
Look, they use the middle of the field too, don't they?
Yeah, they use all levels. Again, it's a very creative offense. McDaniel's a really bright offensive mind. What he did in San Fran, very much what he's doing now in Miami, but arguably with better and more explosive downfield weapons.
They use play action effectively. They use the RPO. I mean, the running game is good enough to help support all that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they get the ball in the perimeter a lot. It's a wide zone. They run that Zorro toss where they're going to run that pre-snap motion in the toss, but they have good constraint plays. They counter off it well. It's a lot of window dressing. They really, I think, mess with your eyes in terms of where the ball is going or where it's not at. And I think you have to be really disciplined with your eyes overall in this game because Miami throws a lot of layers at you.
I wonder how they're going to have. I wonder if they're going to make a more of an onus to use the backs out of the backfield because look, the Steelers have got to make sure they don't get big played on this. They got to keep everything in front of them. They got to tackle the catch when it comes to guys like Hill and Waddle. So I almost wonder if we might see them use their backs a little bit more in the passing game.
Maybe. I know Mostert really has never been a pass-catching back. That was a story in San Fran. He has 8 receptions this year. Maybe Edmonds a bit more. I do wonder if Gesicki's going to make some more plays just because he might get some of those one-on-one chances over the middle because Pittsburgh may be bracketing and playing too high to try to contain that speed. So I just wonder if you're going to see some of that middle-of-the-field stuff open up even more for Gesicki because he's probably going to get a lot of one-on-one looks.
I think, and going back to the game against the Bengals, you see Tua make a couple of good decisions, good throws, and then a couple plays later make some bad decisions and some bad throws. And there's also been a little bit of miscommunication. I wonder how much miscommunication, because they probably should have had another before Tua went down in that game against the Bengals. There probably should have been another interception because the wide receiver wasn't ready for the football over on that left side over there. So I think the thing that kind of sticks out for me with Tua is just there's highs and lows with him.
And you do wonder, he's missed some time, first game back. Is there any rust to be knocked off? I mean, that's a factor, that's a consideration. So, I mean, he should play well. He'll be better than Skylar Thompson, but you just wonder maybe there'll be some first quarter jitters and rust from knock off, and can Pittsburgh try to jump on that early will be something to watch.
How many times has he taken off with the football this year? Just 4 times for 1 yard with Tua. So with him, I was a little bit surprised, and I know he's been injured and all like that, and the concussion and all like that. But I was a little surprised that he hasn't taken off with the football a little bit more than that.
Me too, although I imagine won't be doing much of that, at least designed in this game, just trying to protect him as much as possible. And they are getting Armstead back, which is big for them. Alex Highsmith will have a tough matchup, just going against Armstead, who, when healthy, and rarely he's healthy, but when he plays, still one of the best left tackles in football.
Looks like Mike McDaniel has said that Emmanuel Ogbah on the defensive side of football will be a true game time decision on Sunday. Okay,
a man Pittsburgh's familiar with in his time with Cleveland, and didn't even realize he was still in Miami. He's been there for a while. It's also reunion-wise, Melvin Ingram will play his former team. Ingram tied with the team lead in just 2 sacks, but a guy that's always gotten consistent pressure.
We've seen that guy be good firsthand. They got that, and I think Jonathan wrote him up in the report too. And it's a guy that really caught my attention. I think coming out of where was it, Wisconsin? That Van Ginkel.
That was your guy. You love Van Ginkel.
I mean that. He's undersized for an edge and all, but man, you want to talk about an all effort type of guy, and I would imagine he's going to get a few rushes in this game.
Yeah, I think Jonathan said he knows Van Ginkel, or so there's some connection there.
So high school or something like that. It's hard. It was hard not to notice that guy on tape coming out of college there.
That is why we hired Jonathan, solely for the Van Ginkel insight. No, but yeah, good report there from Jonathan and from Josh Carney as well. So anything else on Miami's offense? Again, I think it's pretty potent. And of course, the first question, really the 2 main questions are stop that perimeter run game, the toss game, the wide zone game, and then stop the speed of Hill and Waddle. Certainly missions that are much easier said than done.
Yeah, I think they're an offense that really relies on chunks. So if you can limit the chunks and make them try to put together 10, 11, 12 play drives, and then if they do get down in your red zone, much of what like was the case, I think they're a little bit better in the red zone, aren't they? They are. What are they in the red zone here? Do you have that up there? I've got their third down or fourth down. Third down, they're 38.2% overall, and I need to find their red zone percentage.
Number 4, 70.6%. So
yeah, I thought
top
they were
red zone
pretty good.
Offenses.
Yeah,
very good.
So you got to be careful with them down in the red zone for sure.
Although to flip over to their defense, they're really poor in situational football. 27th ranked third down defense, 28th red zone defense at 70%. So their offense, and they're allowing as many defensive red zone touchdowns as their offense is scoring. So not what you want to see there. This defense, it's a weird one to figure out, as how discussed a lot of the injuries, especially in the back end. I think there's talent. I think they're kind of built like Tampa in terms of their front 7, probably not quite as talented. Linebackers not quite as good, but they're a pretty stout front overall. The question is, can you pass on these guys?
Yeah, look, they looking at kind of the coverages overall with them. Predominantly, it's been a cover 3 team that I see is the highest, and really kind of middle of the safety, middle of the field closed type group overall. I'm seeing 56 drop back snaps at cover 3, 47 in cover 1. So that's what's that? 603 defensive snaps of theirs with middle of the field safety.
Yeah, I think they vary coverages well overall. They rotate, they disguise, and they hold things, and they'll probably be trying to do that even more against a rookie quarterback like Kenny Pickett, who'll be playing on the road in this one. So I think trying to identify things right after, post-snap picture is going to be really critical for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and you've got some great shots, you guys, in the scouting. I love those defenses like, Baltimore, a couple years ago, and several teams around the league, of showing one thing and really having guys near the line of scrimmage, defensive backs, whether it be a cornerback or a safety, sprint back out into, like a deep cover 2 coverage, or I think one instance you saw, you had a cover 3 situation there with a cloud corner and all.
Yeah, again, they'll show a lot of different looks. They'll play varieties of coverages, different ways to play cover 3, or instead of just being 2 corners and a safety, they'll have 2 safeties and a corner, and the other corner clouds and plays the flat. So, again, I think their DC, he blitzes a lot. He's 8th in blitz rate. Now, the pressure's been really poor overall and not where it needs to be as a team defense, but they show a lot of looks. On 3rd down, you get that nose tackle head up over center, means to run in twists and games and things like that. So they throw a lot at you. And again, I think it starts up front with their big guy, Christian Wilkins. He controls the line of scrimmage, keeps his linebackers clean. Again, sort of built the same way as Tampa Bay. They're aggressive, they slant, they shoot. The linebackers are really aggressive against the run. I think RPO game in terms of passing the football, play action, could really hold and freeze those linebackers because they really bite on those run keys pretty hard, especially against pulling guards.
We'd like that. Landon Roberts thought there was maybe a chance that might be a guy the Steelers might fancy, right?
Yeah, and then I think he followed Flores to Miami, I believe was a story there, if I'm remembering the timeline correctly, because he was in New England originally.
I mean, it will be important to try to – I have a feeling that they're going to, in the same breath, make Kenny Pickett and that offense try to put together those 11, 12, 13 play drives, not get beat up over the top in there and try to tackle the catch. And they're not, as we talked about how they haven't had a lot of success, in the sack column just yet, and in the takeaway department as well. So I think they're just trying to, and I think you guys got a good example of what they try to do in 3rd and, any kind of length type defense. They just try to guard the chains and make you earn it from underneath.
Yeah, that was the play on words in my title, the picket fence for Kenny Pickett. And some teams have done this more and more. I believe the Bengals have done it. Maybe the Patriots in the past. Let's say it's 3rd and forever, 3rd and 15. They would just line every single coverage guy at the sticks and just make you force an underneath throw and tackle the catch. And so that's a specialty type thing. But if Pittsburgh does find themselves in a 3rd and 17, you may get that look in this game.
They got to go after the corners in this game, though, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think you have to. It'll be interesting. Does Miami blitz a lot and still try to get pressure, which is their personality, or do they try to sit back and play more coverage to A, help their corners, and B, as you said, try to force Kenny Pickett to go on long, sustained drives? We'll have to see what the approach is from their DC, Josh Boyer.
Yeah, they're. I guess they're going to have that Kohu in the nickel. I know he's hurt, but and on the injury report this week, but I think he's trending in the right direction. They're really going to need him to step up with Nick Needham out, and I'm guessing Crossan's going to end up making it play on one of the sides there, right?
Yeah, we'll see what the Friday injury report says and get final game statuses for both sides and go from there. So any other thoughts here when it comes to this Dolphins team and preparing for them?
No, just I think we got to see if this offense can score points, and that's my biggest fear. I'm with Matt Canada. We got to.
Yeah, I was just going to say you're like Matt Canada.
We got to score more points, and this team is, and look, the Steelers, I brought this up the other day, the Steelers defensively, a lot of people probably, I don't know if it's felt like it or not, but they are tied, I think, with Seattle for the most explosive plays allowed at 20 yards or more. And they are the worst in the NFL of passing plays of 20 yards or more there. So, and Miami's definitely got the speed and the receivers to register those. And flipping back over to the offensive side of football, how is this team going to get chunks of yardage? It feels once again that so reliant on the and it's good that the Steelers are getting these guys back healthy and back on the field, but man, they have got to create short fields, I have a feeling, to be able to score some points in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Try to create some turnovers and maybe another special team splash play, something like that, which is a big reason why they helped win that game against Tampa Bay. They had that special team splash with a long kick return and only put up 3 points, but in a 2-point game that was obviously really, really critical. So we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave, before we get to our Week 7 picks, and of course, picking the Dolphins game, the Steelers-Dolphins game ourselves, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
Let's do it. Your favorite athletes always strive to put themselves in a winning position, and it's about time you did too with MyBookie. MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests to fill all your sports betting needs anytime, anywhere. Bet on the NFL, Major League playoffs, or play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly blackjack tournaments that they have. If you've been waiting for the right time to get in on the action, that time is right now. Make your winning move today. Sign up at MyBookie at mybookie.ag and use our promo code TERRIBLE, that's terrible, and claim your deposit match of any amount up to $1,000. Again, that's promo code TERRIBLE to claim your bonus at MyBookie.ag. Experience sports in a whole new light and make this season a winning one. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. What a great time it is to be a sports fan too, right? You got football, you got the baseball. Who are you pulling for in the baseball playoffs now? Anybody but Yankees?
Yeah, I guess that. I don't really have a rooting interest. I'm just pulling for my fictional out of the park Pirates. That's the only team I care about is securing them to fictional victory.
How's that going?
I haven't played much lately, but we have some big off-season stories with Brian Reynolds. Will he stay? He's a free agent potentially. Will he opt out of his contract? It just, there's a lot going on, Dave. It's a lot to take in. So I'm trying to keep my head focused on the Steelers.
The Steelers need the Penguins offensive coordinator too, right?
Right. They are just crushing it.
They are. They're scoring six a game right now, it seems there. So make sure to get to MyBookie. Use promo code terrible to take advantage of that great offer that they have. All right, shall we get into some games? And we're both 1-0. We both had the Cardinals laying 2.5 on Thursday night there. So we come away with a victory when it comes to the game against the Cardinals against the Saints on Thursday night there. A lot better game this time around, even though it got a little bit out of hand. Andy Dalton was Andy Dalton in that one, albeit one of those interceptions wasn't his fault. When was the last time that back-to-back it was Ryan Fitzpatrick, back-to-back drives of pick sixes? Is that what you found? Alexa?
Tim always makes me look because he says these things and I say, I don't have time for that. And I go, okay, now I got to find out. I got to be the guy that knows that. Last time a quarterback threw back-to-back pick sixes on consecutive drives is Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2019. Fitzpatrick, of course, analyst for that game last night. So a little bit of full circle football there. All
right. Dallas Cowboys at home against the Detroit Lions. Cowboys laying 7, Alex. They get
Dak back. Yeah, Dak's back. That Lions defense has been miserable. Give me Dallas.
Yeah, I'll take Dallas to lay the 7 points along with you there. Indianapolis Colts on the road against the Tennessee Titans. Which Colts team is going to show up? Tennessee Titans laying 2.5 in a big AFC South game this week.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I'll lean Colts in this one.
I'll begrudgingly take the Titans this week and win it by a field goal. So I'll lay the 2.5 points there. The New York Football Giants on the road against the Jaguars. The Jaguars laying 3. Did you see that stat Scott Cashmere had on Trevor Lawrence and like 1 in, I don't know, what was it, 13 or something? Anytime they don't score.
More than 11 points it was.
Yeah, more than 11 points there. Jaguars laying 3 against the G-Men.
Yeah, the Giants, I mean, they beat the Ravens. They're 5-1. I don't know how they're doing it. I gotta show some face, I guess. I'll go with the Giants. I don't know why, but I'll go with the Giants.
I smell a rat here. We're being set up here. I'm not taking the cheese. Give me the Jaguars to win this outright and cover that 3 points there. Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road against the Carolina Panthers. Buccaneers laying 11 on the road against who's left over there in Carolina.
It'll be P.J. Walker, I believe, starting for them, who was miserable last week. Jacob Eason. I think DJ Moore didn't know who the backup quarterback's name was, which kind of sums up where they're at. Give me Tampa Bay. Tom Brady's going to be pissed off. He's going to throw for like 400 yards and just crush this team.
I'm with you. I'll lay the 11 along with you, Tampa Bay, in that one. Browns On the road against the Ravens. Who are we rooting here for first and foremost? We got to be rooting for the Browns in this one, right?
Yeah, I think to muddy up the AFC North as much as possible is the way to go right now.
All right. Well, the Ravens are favored by 6.5 at home against the Brownies.
I'll say Ravens win, Browns cover.
That sounds about right to me as well, too. Ravens win, Browns covered, plus the 6.5 there. Atlanta Falcons on the road. Man, yeah, they at times Falcons have played some decent ball here, but they go on the road against Cincinnati. Cincinnati laying 6.5 in this one at home.
Yeah, it's a fairly large line. As you said, Atlanta, again, like the Giants, not really quite sure how they're doing it, but they're doing it. But I'll go with the Bengals in this one.
I will as well, too. I'll take the Bengals, lay the 6.5 points in this one. Green Bay Packers on the road against the Washington Commanders. The Packers, bad year to have Aaron Rodgers as your fantasy quarterback, at least right to start here. Packers laying 4.5 on the road against Washington. They got to get it right soon, right?
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying that. We keep saying that, but I'll give it one more week and go Green Bay.
I'll give it one more week as well, too, and go Green Bay, lay that 4.5 points there. Houston Texans off the bye. In fact, I think both these teams are off the bye. Texans out here in Las Vegas. Raiders favored by 7 in this one.
It's a pretty big line for two teams that aren't that great. I'll go Raiders win, but Texans find a way to cover this one.
I'll take the Raiders smashing them in this one. I'll lay the 7 in this one. New York Jets on the road against Denver Broncos. This ended up being a pick'em game.
You know, my favorite internet tweet from the Broncos disaster is the new slogan for the Broncos should be Broncos country, let's hide. So I just keep laughing at that one all week. Although the Jets, I mean, Zach Wilson completed 10 passes. They got to mess with Elijah Moore, and all the receivers want to be traded. I'll go with the Jets in this one just for only the hope of the hilarity of the Broncos' terrible season.
I think this is another setup here.
It's a pick 'em. How is it a setup?
I think it's a setup here. I'll take Denver to win this on a last second something, like a 50-something yard field goal.
Okay.
I'll make this my stone cold lead pipe block of the century of the week of the year today.
Broncos. Did you ever watch any Aqua Teen Hunger Force where that comes from? Because I was watching some clips last night.
I did actually.
Did you like it? It's a very weird show.
It is weird and all like that. But I have been entertained by it in the past. It wasn't much must see TV for me, but I did. I would find myself on there late at night.
All right. That's good to know.
Chargers at home laying 5.5 against the Seahawks.
The Chargers, Keenan Allen's finally coming back. Seattle still played well. Is this in Seattle or
it's in LA?
I can't quit the Chargers, and that's an addiction that I need to try to stop, but I'll go with LA.
I think the Chargers win this, but I think the Seahawks make it a field goal game. So give me the Seahawks plus the 5.5 there. What's setting up to be an interesting game here? Kansas City Chiefs on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. Not sure how much McCaffrey will play. I would imagine they have a small set of something set aside for McCaffrey in this one. The Chiefs coming off that loss to the Bills. The Chiefs on the road favored by 2.5.
Yeah, I'm going to say the Chiefs bounce back here. I'm going to go pick KC.
I'll take the Chiefs on the road and lay that 2.5 as well. Monday night. I know you can't wait to watch this one, Alex. The Chicago Bears on the road against the New England Patriots. Patriots favored by 8 at home against the Bears.
Soon as I get home from the wedding, I'm going to say, forget about the Steelers game. I'm watching Bears-Patriots. I know Bill Belichick talked up the Bears like they were the 27 Yankees, which means the Patriots are going to smash the Bears on Monday night, probably by at least 2 touchdowns. So I think this is a stone cold lock of the century of the week. Give me the Patriots over the Bears.
I'm with you. Lay the 8 points in that with the Patriots over the Bears. All right. That circles us back to Sunday Night Football at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. The Dolphins right now, according to my bookie, favored by 7 at home over the Steelers, and the over-under on this one is 45. What you got?
I struggle with this one. I want to believe that this team, great win, backs against the wall. That's how they operate. That's when they're at their best, when no one, thinks that they can pull off a victory or come back in a season. I just don't know the specific path to victory. And as my terrible take talks about today, this offense just simply is not scoring points. And it's just so hard to win consistently and have a sustainable model of success when you're literally averaging 16.8, when you're a bottom 3-point scoring team in football, as the Dolphins get Tua back, as they get their big playability back. Schematically, they're sound, probably better than where Pittsburgh's at, especially in terms of the offensive coaching of it all. So I think Pittsburgh makes it competitive, makes it closer, but I have Miami winning this one 26-20. So Steelers do
I
cover.
have the same score.
Oh, really?
No.
I'm glad I'm going away for a little bit. I need a break. We're a little too in sync. But 26-20. So Steelers cover, but Miami wins.
Yeah, and I share the same. Maybe we'll hold hands and power them to victory again.
Maybe. My wrongness usually powers them to victory, so yeah. I like their chances.
Look, everything that you just said, I wonder how this team's going to score points, and I wonder how this team's going to get chunk plays and be able to put together. I mean, the opening, at least as of late, when Pickett's been in there, the opening series have been good. But they don't do anything after that and unless Tua makes a couple of mistakes in this game, which could happen, I don't think they have enough firepower. I worry about either Hill or Waddle or both home running in this game. So yeah, I have it exactly the same score that you do, Alex. I have this one, Miami 26, the Steelers 20. And I think they only get to 20 because maybe they get a short field or something because of their defense or a pick six or whatever in that. So I don't have a lot of confidence in this one, even though they're coming off a very gutsy win against the Buccaneers, 26-20 Dolphins.
All right, so we'll see. I think it will be closer, but yeah, it just comes down to this team. This team cannot make the playoffs as a literal bottom 3 offense, averaging, like I said, not scoring more than 20 points in the game offensively, averaging 17 points per game, just barely being above Chicago and Denver. That's going to have to change if this team is truly going to change the course of its season.
Yeah, and let's see, 26-20, that would be put at 46. That means we would take the Steelers plus the points and take the over 45 if you're running off to my bookie to follow us on this one there. All right,
Dave, let's get to reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, how far along are we, Alex? How are we doing on time?
We're pretty long, so short emails and short answers would be ideal.
All right, Pastor, let's see, Christian McCaffrey trade from Mage Guy, Justin. Fun hypothetical question for you two. After seeing the compensation for McCaffrey, would you take the blah, 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 same compensation? Well, okay, would you take the same compensation right now for Najee Harris? He says, I know Fungible Dave is slamming the accept trade button.
I wanted short answers here. We're going to get a 10-minute answer. I don't know. I don't think about those hypotheticals too much. I know what you would. Well, actually, I think I know what you would do. Would you take that deal?
I would probably take that deal right now, to be honest with you. But I mean, it is something like that is really hypothetical there. But thanks for the email, Justin. Pastor Joe Green. Let's see. Absolutely love the show and the site. The $25 no ad site is such a steal. I have a bone to pick from Wednesday's show evaluating recent drafts for the black and gold. In my opinion, Minka must be included in the 2020 draft calculation. To simply say we didn't draft him is weak sauce. Let's say that trade actually happened during the 2020 draft rather than the 2019. Rather than 2019, would he then be counted as part of the draft? This is not like we signed a free agent. We spent draft capital on a player, and for what it's worth, I would do the same kind of swap every year, trading a first-round pick, which hits around 50% of the time for a surefire stud at position of need. It's not like another team It's like another team taking the risk for you. So in my opinion, Fitz cannot simply be placed outside these discussions. Oh, and lastly, I cannot believe that we are only one game out of division with our horrible play. Look, that's one thing we've kind of highlighted here. This like this team's still in the AFC North here. And man, this would be a huge win over Miami, because Miami could be a team that the Steelers are battling maybe for a wild card at some point. So they both would be 3-4 after this game. If the Steelers would win this one, the Steelers would have the head-to-head victory over them. So this could wind up being a big game, and they are indeed still in this. And point taken about the Minkah Fitzpatrick. Anything to add to that?
Not much. I mean, if you want to put Fitzpatrick in there, it wasn't. I get it. I mean, it's a conversation that we had, way back when. But yeah, I think obviously beating Miami would be really beneficial for the AFC aspect. But even a loss Sunday night makes the Eagles game a must win. My whole plan was, and I'll repeat it one more time, 3-5 by the bye. So win one of these next 2 games, and then you have a path. It's a little tough road, but a path. So want to beat Miami, but if you don't do that, then the Eagles game becomes absolute must win.
Lenny Barsikowski, right? Lenny in Cleveland. Dave, next year we know Trubisky and Rudolph will not be on the roster. He says, I'm making my prediction right now, and you can hold me to it only if I'm right. That Baker Mayfield will be on this roster. He says, let's face it, he will be available and probably on the cheap. His pedigree will be too much for Tomlin to pass up. He says, also, Dave, still waiting to see a picture of what you look like. I need a face to put your voice. Come on, man. Look, I'm like a catcher mitt with eyes here at this point. Imagine a 53-year-old ex-rocker that's not taking care of himself.
All right. Don't sell yourself too hard there, Dave. I don't think Baker's ever going to become a Steeler. I get the pedigree aspect, but just the news, the attention that would come with Kenny Pickett, trying to be your starter, your guy, I don't see that one happen.
Reader email from Richard Jameson. I've been listening for a while, but I forget the Ritz cracker joke. Would you please remind me? Set it up.
Oh, I got to try to make sure I can say this one properly, because I know I asked a while back, does anyone get that joke anymore? That's the old Eddie Murphy. Was that Eddie Murphy Raw?
And I'm surprised you still know this. I'm surprised you know this, because this was laughing on the school bus material for us when I was a kid.
I'm a big stand-up comedy fan. I love Eddie Murphy Raw and that kind of stuff. One of my favorite specials ever. So that's the joke of, I forget what the actual content, the analogy was, but Murphy saying, if you're ever starving on an island and someone throws you a cracker, it'll taste like a Ritz, even if it's not, or something to that effect. So basically, when expectations are low, when you're desperate for anything you get looks really good is kind of what we mean that.
Go back, listen to. I think it is. What was the other one? That other comedy album?
It was not Shameless. Was it Shameless?
No, there was Raw, and hold on, this is going to kill me now.
I know. There was the one he's in that crazy. I mean, both he was wearing crazy outfits. One in purple, one in like orange. I think. I don't know which was which though. Delirious. Was it Delirious?
Yeah, I think it was Delirious.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on here. Discography.
Sure, the listeners are really interested. Let's see. I'm not seeing the list here, but it was Raw and I think Delirious.
Okay. Anyway, those go back to listen, and that's some funny stuff. That's still funny going back and listen to that stuff.
Who's your favorite stand-up comedian of all time?
Man, I like that Ron White. I've liked that Ron White.
Blue Collar Comedy Club.
Stephen Wright. I've liked his dry sense of humor. The guy that passed away,
Norm Macdonald.
No, I like Norm Macdonald too. I think he's his.
Oh, Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah, Mitch is fantastic. Some of the stuff that I like some of that dry humor, that kind of over your head kind of stuff.
Right. I'm not usually a big one-liner guy, and Mitch Hedberg was the king of one-liners, but he was so good at those that he always made those funny. Him and Dave Attell was some of my favorite like one-line comedians.
I know this probably won't go over well, but I grew up on, one of the first albums I had was some of that early Bill Cosby stuff there. Okay. Was super funny. What was the name of that first? I forget the name of that first album that I used to listen to all the time. Anyway, let's see. Winning is a deodorant. Chris Cordova. Hey guys, I haven't cheered that much in the game for offense and defense in a long time. Anyways, interested to see how Mitch plays. I think we already kind of covered this one the other day, maybe. decimated by injuries, 8-point dogs helped him. No pressure, no fans booing, chanting Kenny, because I doubt anyone would be chanting. Yeah, I think we covered that the other day there. Nicholas Gooden. Okay, real quick. We'll make this the last one from Nicholas Gooden. Interested in your thoughts on overall player development in the NFL. In your opinions, how often do players make significant improvements to their games after being drafted? By significant, I guess I mean, how often do you see guys really change who they were in college? Do you think it varies widely based on position? I'll start with the end of what I do think it personally, I do think it can vary widely on position. And I'll give you a great example. Antonio Brown coming out of Central Michigan. He was good after the catch and all like that, but I don't remember him setting the world on fire as a route runner. And boy, did he develop as a route runner at the NFL level.
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's hard to give a one-size-fits-all answer. It's really a case-by-case thing. Sometimes players make jumps. I mean, it depends on, if you were a young guy in college, if you were a guy that were injured in college, didn't have a good coach, if you had personal stuff happening, and once you get to the NFL and you're fully dedicated to this is your job, this is your life, you can see those changes happen. So, it really just depends on the player, the circumstances. But yeah, AB, to me, where he grew the most was his strength. I mean, he was a scrawny guy, and he became a really strong dude that got up to 190 pounds and was really, I think his play strength was super underrated and part of what made him such a great player.
Yeah, he became, like I said, he became a hell of a route runner. The intricacies of leaning into players and getting on their feet and stuff like that. Now, for the most part, Alex, these guys usually are what they were in college as a mass number.
I think it's difficult as a team to say, let's draft this guy and then fix him. I think it's a dangerous game to play, but you understand there are going to be, some percentage of players from every single draft class that are able to transform their career, but you never bank on that happening.
I think where most of the significant improvements might come is in the strengths that the player already had.
Right. And I think, again, it goes back to, why did they struggle at one thing? Did they have I think about Bud Dupree. He didn't have a dedicated coach in college. And so he was kind of just winning off of raw talent, and he gets the NFL. He finally gets healthy, has some good coaching, takes his game to a whole new level. So again, it really is circumstantial.
And look, over the years, quarterback is a position I struggle the most at, plain and simple.
Well, Josh Allen's one example of a guy totally transforming his career, but now every team says, well, we'll do what Josh Allen did. And Josh Allen's such a one out of a million kind of thing that teams chase that and most teams fail.
Tyler Wise hit something on Twitter the other day in that game. Who was the player that was grabby, that held all the penalties for the was it the Chargers in that game?
Was it Damari Mathis?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And Tyler went right back to his scouting report that says mighty grabby, might cause I forget exactly how he worded it, but he nailed that, and you watch enough tape and get better at we're always trying to prove, not all of us here, but there's certain things that you start learning to look for and can write up in scouting reports and then refer back to them as aha kind of moments,
Right. I think about this team signing Josh Malone in the practice squad. We pulled up our 2017 draft profile on Josh Malone and said he was a vertical guy, but a poor route runner and really didn't win a lot of ways. And he struggled in his career because of that. So it all kind of comes back to you.
All right, Alex, have a safe trip this weekend and enjoy yourself. And don't think about me over here panicking. And
it'll be fine. I'm going to be freaking out just wondering about the game. It's going to be really weird for me to miss a game. It has not happened in over a decade.
No, we got great guys working on the site. The crew's doing a great job. So have a good time at that wedding and be safe. And I'll talk to you back on the Wednesday show next week, because I'll have Josh Carney and Jonathan Heitzer recapping the Miami Dolphins game with me on the Monday show there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do on one, donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, as you hear so many people get, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, and $25 that way there. So until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.